There are some cars that seem to have taken longer than others to reach the Irish market, or in fact the European market, and the Renault Megane E-Tech is one of them. But hey, it's finally here, and I have an early look at this car to help judge it actually for the AA Ireland Car Awards. So I'll have a more in-depth bit of time with the car in a few weeks on the channel, but this is a very quick initial look at it. So just under €38,000 for the 40 kilowatt hour battery, rising to 41,995 for the 60 kilowatt hour battery. And if you want the top spec car, you're looking at almost €49,000 when you have leather seats, long range. There's a version that goes up to 220 brake horsepower. There's 130 brake horsepower. And a lot of people have said 40 is just a little bit too low in terms of battery size. Now, that remains to be seen. It's not the biggest car in the world, so you could argue that, well, it's technically kind of a city size car. Why does it need a massive battery? You'll charge it faster. You'll still get around 300 kilometers from the smaller range battery, the 40 kilowatt hour, and then if you go for the 60 kilowatt hour, it's well into the 400. So there is a bit of a jump there if you do need the range. Now I'm going to take you on a little tour around the car. First of all, we'll have a look at the front, the back, the insides. So if you're very curious about the Megane E-Tech, have a look. Front has LED lights, and the back actually has LED lights also. Now the Renault badge does not light up at night time. Some people have asked me that already. So you get these daytime running lights down the front as well. A couple of creases in the bonnet, so it's quite an attractive nose. You can get up to 20-inch alloys. They will affect your range. Standard are 18-inch. And then people have kind of asked the size of the car. So yes, it's quite like an ID3 in terms of length. However, it's a little bit more coupe-like in the styling, I suppose. The roof isn't as high up. And then more LED lights on the back of the vehicle. They're probably pulsating a little bit on camera, but they're very dead straight, and they look really great at night time. So that red strip just, looks good. It just kind of lends itself to two big fat exhausts here, doesn't it? A Cleo Williams style 172. So different textures and colours going on. You've got the black roof, the chrome across, and the different colour paint obviously as well. So I think it's a pretty attractive looking car. The door handles pop out when you walk up towards the vehicle. Obviously they are tucked away here for rear. Just open like that. Depending on trim spec, you have blind spot, as you can see there in your mirrors, and your charging port is on the passenger side. In this part of the world, just standard CCS port option here as well, so you can charge away. A couple of options there also. Interesting that there's a Renault badge on the port. These are the upgraded alloy wheels, 20-inch. And for accessing the boot, it's a rather unusual little button there. It is quite a deep boot. It drops down quite a bit. Huge lip going on here. Some storage for cables included. Definitely makes life easier. You get a light. A couple of shopping hooks obviously, but that's sort of about it. So quite a deep boot, and yeah, you'll definitely fit the week's shopping inside, no problem at all. That window actually is very, very small. I'll tell you about that in a second. 440 is the boot. About 22 litres to store your cables underneath. Speaking of charging, 130 kilowatt charging is how fast the car can do. That's pretty good by today's standards. Have a think about it. When was the last time you saw a charger in Ireland that was 130 kilowatts and wasn't Ionity? It's still very, very rare, so there's a good bit of future proofing into the car. That means if you did get 130 kilowatt charging, you'd get to 80% in about 20-ish minutes, certainly below 30. And these are kind of the arguments for having a slightly smaller battery. But let me know in the comments, do you think 40 kilowatt hour is acceptable in an EV of this size in 2022, or would you just rather see options maybe starting at 60, maybe even 50, but certainly something that competes directly with the ID3 at 77 kilowatt hours usable? So the point of view tour of the car continues here. So there's carpeted areas inside for not having things rattle around. Obviously you've got a flat floor, ground up EV. Easily marked from kids and easily wiped obviously as well. Isofix have little cover holders, they're nice. No armrest in the rear bench. And a lot of materials in the car are recycled, plastics, some of them recycled. You kind of get a sense from these seats. Obviously top spec will have leather available. I'm not sure if this part is kind of trying to hint at you that it's a two-seater strictly. But it kind of feels like it. So here's an adult. I don't really think you'd be getting 3 adults here somehow. That said, if you have your seat all the way down, it's a little bit hard to get your feet under. Plenty of leg room though for knees, so that's all right. And same with the head height. You know, it grows once you're inside. Once you're inside the car. That's the view from the back seat. Very pointy here. And there is your phone charging tray, which I'll tell you more about in a second, because I've noticed something about it. There are 2 USB-C charging ports tucked away under here, and then 2 air vents also. So let me show you around this part of the car now and give you an idea of what the new Megane E-Tech is like to be behind the wheel of. So again, carpet in here for keys and stopping things rattle. Stitching along here, which is nice touch. Same with bits of Alcantara here and chrome, and that extends then to the dashboard. So you've got this speaker style material here, and then beyond that you have more Alcantara along that strip of the car. It's a Google driven system, so when you put in any sort of search for an area, if you wanted to find the Blue Haven for example, it will tell you how long it'll take to get there, and also what battery range you'll have when you get there. So Google system is actually pretty good. You use it in Volvos and Polestar and other cars like that, and it's just nice, a nice little layer of knowing what range you'll have when you get there. So that is the continued interior of the car. Decent quality. Definitely don't get the sense that they've kind of had to skimp back to put batteries in. Now this bit here easily slots a phone inside. So while that's for charging and this bit is for resting your hand on if you're trying to select something, this allows you to stick a phone in landscape mode. And I just wonder will people be watching things they shouldn't be watching when they're driving. Also really great high resolution on the display. So no matter what you're looking at, I'll just see if I can change the view here for you now. But yeah, you can get your nav also in that center instrument display, and it's just very sharp. Lovely resolution. Funky enough air vents also in the car here. So it's quirky enough and different enough, but really I do love the steering wheel, flat bottom on it, a couple of nice buttons, cruise control, and the distance in the car in front. So it's all very cleverly laid out. You're not looking through menus, shortcut buttons, lots of things, and I think everybody, just about everybody, will be happy enough with how you can use the screens and the functions of the Megane E-Tech. Just in terms of storage, so you have these dividers here. They can be moved to whatever way you want them to be moved, and you can have more space, less space, hold a drink, cup holder. Your armrest is under here, and interestingly you don't really see them until again you go looking, a bit like the rear ones. You have 2 USB-C charging ports just under the armrest. The armrest itself is here with a bit of space for hiding things. First thing you'll notice behind the wheel is how sharp the steering is. So very direct. As soon as you have any adjustment. There's just great steering. Apart from the rare occasion where you're really pushing on and you're really going into a turn and you're trying to nail the car into a very sharp corner, it's very, very well behaved. It will probably understeer a little bit if you do push on. I've been impressed by the ride quality, even though this is on 20-inch alloys. Interesting thing about the car, you know, much like you think of Nissan and electric and you think of the Leaf, well, it's not really any different with this. I just feel you think of the Zoe. So Renault have made what's heading for 500,000 electric cars that they now have on the roads, and the Zoe has been famous that one serious edge that it had over a lot of competitors was that it could do 22 kilowatt charging using public chargers. Same story with the Megane E-Tech. That's a standard, and that's something that many of the competitors may not even be able to do, but certainly will charge you extra for. So that is a significant edge that the car has. It never feels underpowered, even with that entry 130 brake horsepower, rising to, I think it's 218. Now that's a quick Megane. Because actually, when you think about it, in some ways, you know, it's not that the Clio is on the same comparable size or anything, but it doesn't look like a vastly bigger car than the Clio. So think of 218 brake horsepower and you kind of get an idea of how fun the car is potentially able to be. There is quite an audible kind of groan from the car that will be heard outside, so the idea of a dog or a human not hearing you is hopefully reduced. It's certainly, I mean, despite all the noises that they are putting into EVs, there's still occasions where you're driving up behind people, you know, on a shared piece of footpath and road or whatever, and they just don't hear you. And yeah, that takes a bit of getting used to. As an EV driver especially, you've got to be careful with that. So there's actually technically 4 levels of regen, but it's really 3. There's paddles on the back of the steering wheel that do that. The most severe level, it doesn't quite give you 1 pedal driving, but it's not far off it. So not as severe as, you know, something like, again, the e-pedal in Nissan, or even, I think it's the i-pedal they call it in Kia, certainly Hyundai. It's not quite as severe as that, but it's still very, very usable. You do hear the outside world going on a good bit. Not the most insulated of cars in that sense. The other thing is the energy consumption. So it is not budging really, which in one sense is good, but it's hovering around 18 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And I would have expected to see something a little bit closer to 15 perhaps. Without a shadow of a doubt, however, and especially when you factor in the price of it, it is one of the most engaging electric cars that I've driven to drive. There's actually a good bit of fun going on in it. Yes, it has its weight limitations, as every EV kind of does, unless you're spending, you know, well into 6 figures on them. But, you know, genuine, it's sharp to drive, it handles quite well, it's absolutely nippy. So it definitely, there's a fun factor element to it, no doubt about it. Good bit of safety stuff on board with the car as well. So you've got blind spot, you can spec a camera with a stream view, because the rear view mirror is actually really, really small, and that's without anybody sitting in that middle seat. If there is, bar the, you know, camera sensor, reverse sensing camera, I don't know how you'd see out the back of the car. It's really, really small. So it will know if you're trying to open a door on top of cyclists and pedestrians. There's loads of safety stuff. It even has a couple of things. There's some agreement that Renault have between firefighters in France, so they can douse the flames on an EV sometimes in an hour or more. Renault claim they can do it in 5 minutes on the Megane E-Tech, and there's a QR code on the windscreen they can scan to find out where in the car are the batteries and all that stuff. And I do wonder, do firefighters in places like here in Ireland get training in these kind of newer things that you just, you know, you didn't have to think about with cars in the past. So very easy to drive on the motorways also, because it has active cruise control. It can stop start with traffic, and, you know, anything that makes life easier, particularly when you're dealing with the M50 every day and the traffic that can come with it can be you know, a little bit annoying. So that kind of stuff can make life a little bit easier. But yeah, I just overall feeling, you know, I really do like it. I had a good spin in it last night as well, and just with the dashboard wrapping around you and all the various different lights that come as part of the package, it really was a very pleasant place to sit. I think, to be fair to the car, the only probably questionable thing about it is the size of the battery in the entry-level model. I think maybe people would have been expecting at least a 50 kilowatt hour, so to go for 40, I mean, it's not to say there isn't the option of the 60, and again, if you want something that will charge a little bit faster and you don't need massive range, and sort of somewhere between 250 and 300 kilometers will do you just fine, then you could argue that they've made the car a little bit more affordable than some of the competitors in the same segment. So there's options there, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. But overall, I've been really impressed with it. As with any model, really, you know, what will stock be like, especially at the start. But all round is a fun car to drive with good charging speeds, I think good looks, and a couple of options for batteries. Then I think Renault are putting their best foot reasonably forward with the Megane E-Tech. It's finally here, the Megane E-Tech. I hope you've enjoyed this little look around at it today. It's certainly a striking looking car in my opinion. It looks really, really good. You know, even as you look all the time, you notice different bits on it, like that kind of, I wouldn't call it carbon fibre, but there is a strip going down the side of it. Price, I think the entry price of it actually isn't bad at all. The thing that is probably question markable is the 40 kilowatt hour battery. Some of you will just find that's a little bit too low, but do, as I said, let me know your thoughts on it. There will be more trim specs of this car arriving into dealers. It's literally has just landed, so go have a look at one for yourself. Compare it to something like the ID3. It probably will fall a little bit cheaper, but then again, as soon as you start speccing it up, comparable, totally comparable. And then the advantage the ID3 will have is it will have a bigger battery, so that's also something to bear in mind. Anyway, if you have any comments or questions or thoughts about the car, what do you think of it, please do leave any comments in the comment section down below. Questions, anything like that, that's what we're here for. And if you have already ordered one, let us know what colour you went for. There's 6 colours available in the car from launch. Anyway, hope this has helped in some way. We'll have a longer look at the car in more detail a little bit later on in the year. Thank you very much for watching this review, and I'll see you in the next one.